Thank you. First on our agenda is the consent agenda. Open to a motion or discussion at this point on the consent agenda. Are you willing to make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I will make a motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Second. Any further board discussion, comments, questions, concerns? And with that, I'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Perfect. Let's move on to public comments. Perfect. Let's move on to new business. First thing on new business is discussion on request from city staff for approval of a letter of support for upcoming city projects. Becky, virtually, would you like to give us a brief introduction to this topic?
Yes, I will. And just bear with me if I start to cough. I won't stop. It just goes on and on and on. It's ridiculous. At the parking meeting, Zach, city planner, attended last week. And we talked after the meeting was over, quite at the end of the meeting, he talked about a couple of things that were happening in town. And one of them was the Michigan Maple Block property. And the other is this condensed zoning project. And it was interesting conversation to hear what the planning commission was doing, the things that they were working on. And it came out of the conversation that it might be a good idea for the management board to write letters of support for both of these, as they do affect standards of living and the way properties are developed on the edge and the circumference of downtown. The first one, the Michigan Maple Block property, of course, we all know we need the housing. We need places for people to live who work in downtown. We need walkable housing to downtown. We need affordable housing to downtown. And this project is something that almost everyone, I think, believes in. It's taking a while to come to fruition, but it would be helpful to Zach if we would write just a broad-based letter saying what it would do to help downtown and why downtown would support it. And when I would write that letter, I would write it, we need walkability and we need affordability. The second one of the condensed zoning project, I think Zach has mentioned this. Maybe not. I go to too many meetings, but the planning commission is, and Shane, you might also want to jump in here too if I don't cover this exactly right. But if you look at the zoning map, you'll see that it's got several different zones in it, and it's none of them are quite comprehensive. So the idea is to combine some of those zones so that you can do certain things in, so that you can do them all of the things that you can do in those zones in. Oh God, guys, I'm sorry. I'm a little high on Robitussin too.
I
idea is
so
so there would be
interject that I
fewer
love
zones.
Becky just admitted to robo-rolling in a meeting.
I'm telling you, I've done a whole bottle today. It's terrible.
That's gonna make them in.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the nighttime formula in just an hour when I'm done with this. So if they condense these districts, they will have fewer districts. And what they hope that will happen is we'll have smaller setbacks. You'll have neighborhoods where you can do a variety of things in them. You can have storefronts, residential uses. They will all of those uses will be able to happen in this area. So this is what it reflects in my mind, how I understand this is a small downtown or urban area that you would have had in maybe when I was a kid, where you would walk up the block and you would go, there would be a corner store, a grocery store on the corner. And this is kind of going back to that kind of lifestyle that we had then. Again, it's something that encourages walkability. It's something that encourages people to be able to afford housing near the downtown. And these are things that Zach thought it would be good to get the downtown management board behind on. And I honestly, I'm glad that we were asked and that our opinion means something. So it's up to you if you would like me to write these letters. Thought I should run it by you first. Shane, if you want to jump in on and explain better what I just spoke about, you'd be welcome.
No, I think you hit the highlights pretty well. Obviously, we have a multitude of zones currently. If you look at the map, we're trying to look at some condensing, as Becky mentioned, looking at opportunities to maybe increase some density, which would move into addressing some of our housing challenges potentially. I mean, these are small steps that we're making, but ultimately the goal is to try to create more opportunities for increased housing options. So this is a small step in that direction.
And I would throw in there, I know, Ben, you told me you read Strong Towns, and maybe some of the rest of you follow Strong Towns too. But one of the things that makes a town strong is all of these small steps, incremental steps that you combine together can make a difference, is what, as Shane just said. The ADUs made a small difference. This will make a small difference. You can't, it's really hard to take a magic wand and just wave it and make a huge difference and change everything. But you put all these little things together, and then you can make a difference, and you do get more housing, and you do get more walkability. So
What would be the negative to this?
I don't know, Robin. I honestly don't know the negative. I see all positive. So I guess I'd have to have someone else jump in on that.
I think what some folks might view as a
Yeah.
negative is more people in town and more big development. My personal view on that is, if you look at the demographics of town.
Sure, you hit your button.
Thank you. Forget that constantly. My personal view on that, for the population, is that we've been shrinking. Petoskey peaked in the 1960s at almost 7,000. And the city limits have gradually been losing population. And I think when we equate growth, most individuals have the mindset that Petoskey has grown tremendously over the years, but it's more sprawl in the township. So I think the density, from my personal view, is an important way to address the sprawl into the more natural areas that make this area special that we think of. So I think that would be the negative, is just it's a lot more density.
I think another negative also might be the fact that these might be, and I don't know the details of this, but market rate versus affordable. Because our market rate up here skews high anyway. And if this is at all going to benefit downtown worker wise, is this the right kind of development? Would this development provide for that?
Are you talking about the one out at Michigan Maple River?
Yeah, Maple Block, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or any of them,
I
to
was
be honest with
talking
you.
more of the zoning.
Well, the zoning laws, I think from my perspective, both of them tying the same as that change in density.
Yeah, yeah. But it looked at the Maple Block, one, it looks like there's, you have to qualify.
Right, but even 80 to 120% of AMI is still skews high for the area with the amount of higher income people, kind of their numbers out.
Well, I believe that's what the Habitat for Humanity has started focusing on, and they might be slightly higher than 120 as well, because they just the real economics of the situation. And there is a difference also between the AMI of folks that live here versus the secondary homes, and if they qualify as a primary resident exemption on their taxes, and that would affect that as well. So some of those bigger properties up here likely don't fit into that as much as they'd like. Problem is, it's tough to get 100% accurate numbers in a lot of these regards.
I think one thing when you talk about opening up zoning, that there's a lot of the not in my backyard people that are worried about it. All of a sudden you can have ADUs, or you can have multifamily in your neighborhood and you're on a single family home. They're worried that their house values will go down because of that. That's a common tribe, I think, about going opposing with them.
Yeah.
Then, to be clear, I think more we need the better relaxed zoning for this type of stuff. So
Yeah.
but that's what I've heard.
And from my perspective, that I did write a letter of support as an individual, and I might write one as a business, but as the downtown management board, is this something that we see as beneficial from wearing this hat? No, yes.
Yeah, I can see too, and I was
Yeah,
asking just you know, just to hear the opposite side. I'm supportive of all this, but I was just wanting to hear.
Exactly. I think that you hit the property values. I think density is a concern, traffic's a concern. To a large extent, I don't see this negatively impacting the Maple Block negatively impacting traffic because it's at the edge of Emmett Street. It's already kind of on the bypass for town. The old railroad grade goes right behind it. And while I believe MDOT still owns the rights directly behind it, that Greenway project we've been working on in the master plan for years is slowly extending down the Greenway and could be a wonderful, wonderful freeway essentially into downtown. Property values. Whose property values is it going to negatively impact? Essentially, it's the problem. It's
It would be a positive impact more than anything else.
to
that project. Yeah.
For the density projects as well, I mean, the reality is this is mostly asking just to start. If I understand it correctly, just pare out so we don't have so many zones. It's starting to condense them because I think we got zone creep for a while of we didn't want to spot zone, so let's make this one B1. This is B2. This is B2 transitional. This is
Shane, it's essentially R1 and R2 are coming together, right? Is that essentially the objective?
Yeah, that's right. And the planning commission's taken a very deliberate approach with this. So they've had, I think, 3 discussions on it. We're not really close to having this all ironed out yet. So we're trying to just take it slow and work our way through it and get as much feedback as possible, because the comments that were made here tonight are exactly what we're hearing. The concerns about density, about the NIMBYism that's out there and what that does to property values. And as we look at it, when we look at housing and looking at all the tools in our toolbox, I think we need to have multiple options to use. And this is one of many options I think that we can have in our toolbox to use at our disposal. And still, as Ben mentioned, we've had that creep, outside of Petoskey, and when we look at zoning, and everyone's concerned about their views and the impact of going vertical, but certainly that can still happen in areas that I think we all value what we see, and we want to certainly protect that in many cases. But if there's opportunities to expand our density, I certainly think we can do that very carefully and deliberately.
And to your point, Ben, I think when you look at the downtown business, the central downtown, like the more people that can live closer and to the central downtown, the better, right? Both for affordable, for working, or just for.
And I think preservation of our area's natural resources plays heavily into why people come to Northern too. Dropping 200 units onto what, 18 acres?
Yeah, 17 something. Yeah,
17 something acres is possible in the city limits, but in the township, that would be almost 100 acres worth of development with how their constraints are. And that becomes very visibly impactful. And the ability, I think, to cut down on the zones in town, I think streamlines things. So basically, as a downtown, do we view this as something that's beneficial to our purview and how we feel the area should go? And I think, as Shane said, this isn't going to be like overnight that this is going to change. They're still working on it. So if we say we don't support it, that's probably going to weigh into how the planning commission tackles it. And if we say, we're generally in favor of what's coming forward, that doesn't mean it's going to be exactly as written tomorrow, but I think they'll just take that into consideration.
From my perspective, I think it is very valuable to have the opposing, mindset of, how are people going to look negatively at it? I think that's a very powerful and positive, exercise to go through. But on both sides of both issues that they're trying to tackle, it really seems like they've identified in these 2 projects, specifically, the Lumberman Square and then the Maple Block facility. Those are really great opportunities in the city limits to develop something like this. So if there's already been a lot of discussion about they want to make sure it's the right properties to be able to support those things. And it seems like they found that, number 1 on that project. And number 2, if they're just discussing condensing the R1, R2, if that's something that we also wanted to write a letter in support of, if being those two separate issues. There's a lot of parallels from my understanding. I'm not incredibly educated on the different zoning, but there's a lot of similarities in R1 and R2. And so everything that's yellow on this map that I'm looking at in the minutes just becomes the same shade of yellow, and we bring it together. That seems like a really good first step to try to check some of those smaller boxes. So that's my perspective on it.
I mean, from one perspective, I think we just have way too many zones. I remember getting in, now this is a quick side story, but it's got relevance. I got an overnight parking ticket about 4 years ago. And I brought it to public safety and I was like, oh, this ticket shouldn't exist. Like, oh no, you park overnight in downtown and you can't. I said, no, I can alternate street parking. And I said, no, you actually can't. And I pulled out the city zoning and I said, actually, there was something pushed through specifically for 200 East Lake Street. I'm not going to use the derogatory name. And it actually had 2 other streets in town that were included in that, which were technically downtown, but actually were not included in the overnight street parking. So I think all of these different zones, we're finding little things that aren't necessarily lining up with as intended. And it's gotten to the point where there's just a lot of zoning. So. Any other board?
I do remember that you had a good point then.
Yeah, and that zone did disappear at what,
Yes.
because I think it was the least utilized one.
Yeah.
I think at this point, if it's something we're in favor of, I'd be open to a motion. Well, I don't think we even need a motion on this because it's not really a action item, more so as just giving Becky guidance if we would be.
To go ahead to write them.
Yeah, go ahead to write the letter. I think that would be more proper than an actual motion. At this
Yeah, I don't
stage.
think,
So if we just want to take a straw poll, would folks be up for that? If we just do a straw poll, would we be generally in favor of writing a letter of support for
Caesar.
just the condensing of zoning in the city as specified. So it looks like 5 in favor of that, and then same thing, would we be in favor of writing a letter of support for the Maple Block project? Correct. So I think that should give you guidance if that's okay, Becky.
Okay, I'll write the letters.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is report by downtown management board committees.
Well, you do have in your packet, the meeting notes from the marketing committee. This committee has been like busy as bees, and they're working on this calendar, and there is a totally volunteer-led program. I'm so pleased that they just united around this, and they're moving very, very fast. The calendars should be in the stores for sale by July of this year, and they are 2024 calendars. They're right now, the notice just went out today for advertising space on the calendar pages, and it's $150 for an ad and $200 if it has to be designed. They're working on their staycation project, which is coming up March 22nd through April 3rd, and that primarily involves goodie bags being collected and packaged at the Perry Hotel. And the billboard that they are putting up this month is about staycation as well. And then next week is the annual meeting, the Toast to Downtown. We did change it because it was the same night as, business after hours that was held at Beard's by the chamber. And that date was one that had been changed as well. So there was a lot of confusion about dates on that night. So we did not want to go up against the chamber with a well-established event and our brand new event, especially when the established event was being held in downtown. So we did change it to March 2nd. It will be in the Rose Room at the Perry. The committee really wanted the finest place we could find and the nicest show place we could find in downtown to have a fancy evening. And I have a PowerPoint presented that I think I'm scheduled to give about 6 o'clock. I might have these. I think we're starting at 5:30. You're going to get notes. You've already had flyers, but it'll be a meet and greet. And then I'll give this presentation, and it talks about our achievements in the last year. And then there'll be a short time for questions and answers, and we will keep it short and sweet, but my theme is downtown by the numbers. And we'll talk about how many downtown dollars were sold, how many tickets were written, how many events were given. Just to try to give the people that come a little better scope of what we actually do in downtown. And this is being done in reaction to the strategic plan that said we needed to market ourselves better. And I know that's always been a fault of mine. I just get something done and don't go around crowing about it. And I know I've known all these years I needed to do that more, but this is forcing me to do it, and I will do it. And maybe I will even take this presentation. Maybe it would go to city council. We'll see how it goes. So I've never given an annual report to city council. So this might be the first time we start that as well. So tell your business friends and neighbors they want to come to this. Board members are going to get flyers in the next day or so to take around. If you remember, Allison told us when she was writing our strategic plan, we need to have a block captain point of view where we have people on the streets talking to the businesses and spreading the word. So it's only $10, and we have money in the budget to put kind of a really nice spread out. It will be an open bar, but there will be good hors d'oeuvres, enough for everyone. The $10 is looked at as something to help with the food, but also to make people know they're getting something of value. So this is a big push for the next week. Ben, I know you said Thursdays are impossible for you. I feel bad about that. I did order just today, and I hope they get here in time. I ordered name tags for all the board members because it's occurred to me that you guys don't have any, and you should. So I do hope they get here in time. If not, we'll have some lanyards or something. But I'm sorry that it is a Thursday, Ben, but we'll muddle through. And next year we'll compare your schedule with this schedule. So it happened on Thursday because we were talking about we were trying to fit it in with a Thursday schedule. So that's the reason for that. So let's see, what else did I have here?
Can I interrupt?
Yes, please.
Okay, I just want to say to our board of who's here, the calendar that we're working on, if you guys run into Jennifer Shorter, she really spearheaded this, did a lot of homework on this. And it's really exciting. It's turning out very nicely. And I mean, everybody's been supportive, but she kind of spearheaded the whole project. And I think that should be notated.
Absolutely. In all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen a project run this smoothly by volunteers as this marketing committee project had. And Jennifer it was her idea. It's her brainchild. She really wanted it, but she brought it through. And Robin, don't short everyone else. They all supported it as well. It was really fun.
To everybody and did the homework.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch. I've
Yeah.
hardly done anything on it. In fact, I'm behind on some of the emails for it. So.
Mm-hmm.
So going on to the parking committee notes, you have the notes in front of you. Following up on the dining deck ordinance, city council did approve last night, dining decks to be allowed by resolution for one more year. The city staff is following up on a plan to get a concept from Beckett and Rader that will give a strict regulation of what these things look like. It will be based on the guidelines that were created by the design committee, but it will formalize it and it will be structured, but that it's too late to move forward on that this year. So it's resolution again this year. And then next year, the ordinance should be ready. And Shane, did you have anything to add? I mean, that was my perspective from watching at home last night. They did pass it.
Yeah, that's correct. We have met as a staff and really try to put our heads together on the feedback we received on the current dining decks was they don't complement our historical architecture that we all appreciate downtown. So to really address that concern, we wanted to engage Beckett and Rader to help us put together a specification, a drawing, if you will. So if you want to participate and have a dining deck downtown, it's very clear what the standards are, what the specifications are, so we're consistent from one dining deck to the next. This will elevate the cost of these dining decks. You're not just going to be able to run down to Home Depot and get some treated wood and kind of put a deck together. You know, this is going to be something that's going to have to be planned out, which is why we wanted to do one more year of the current system, and just to give potential participants time to gear up for it and try to decide if they want to participate going forward. So there will be a little bit more substantial cost to business owners, but I think from a consistency standpoint, it'll be something that we can all step back and be proud of going forward. So we just didn't have time to go through that whole process and be comfortable where we were at. So we didn't want to shut the door completely on this opportunity. So we just asked council to engage one more time, and they were comfortable doing that. We did get some feedback last night, and we're going to have to address this if that happens. And I wasn't here for this discussion last year, but there was a few folks that were excluded from this opportunity that it seemed like council was supportive of maybe re-looking at the 50% food-based business as a result of that discussion last night. But they did pass it as it was presented. So that may resurface, just depends on the applicants that we get. And if council decides that they want to expand that to a few that maybe were excluded in the past, we'll have to address that if that time comes.
Do you see any problem with the increase in how much it would cost to do this, that it would prohibit a lot more people, or not?
That's really not our intent to make that a issue, but I think the take home message we heard fairly loudly was we want this to be complementary to the architecture. We don't want this to be, wow, that stands out in a negative way. We want this to be, you know, as much as we can. And I don't know how you necessarily do that with a temporary structure, but we're going to try our best to, from a color scheme, from railings, from plantings, we're going to try to address all the different scenarios to again make it complementary to what we're doing. But it will increase cost, and some may decide I'm going to take a step back, and that's their prerogative at that point.
Now, one thing, has it come up of having in the design thoughts, or I guess you haven't gone that far, but about having a roof structure or a top, covering for these? Is that something that is interesting?
That hasn't come up. We have talked about the temporary umbrella situation and some of the issues we've had with umbrellas, either not brought down or other challenges with umbrellas. But we haven't talked about a roof structure, but certainly that's something that would, again, probably increase cost, and that would be something that we would have to evaluate. And we'll see what Beckett and Rader comes up with. We're just getting started with this, so we'll see kind of what their plans look like, and obviously provide that feedback to the design committee and see how that rolls forward.
So we can eat on the streets again this year. And we're still working through it. And I will say the city staff, I was at the meeting that was, Shane, what was that? I know it was 2.5 hours that we met to hand out. That was one of the longer ones ever.
Yeah.
So.
That was good discussion.
Yeah. So moving along to a couple of things we talked about last month on the trash enclosure, I have ordered signs for the outside sign will be brass, and it just says the addresses that are allowed to use it. The inside signs are red and white, and they are much more, let's say, angry looking. Do not. That I want everyone to know that Lindsay Walker went the day after our last meeting, and she took her truck and she cleaned out everything that was in there. And not the big pieces, not the pallets and that kind of stuff, but all of the cardboard. I think she said it was 2 truckloads of stuff that she took out of there. that was sitting there as a volunteer, just because she doesn't like to see that kind of mess. So I really have to take my hat off to her for doing that. There have been a couple incidents since then. I have talked directly to the people that are creating the incidents, sometimes more than once. But the other thing I'm looking at is a camera. I'm even if it's a camera that, I don't know, they would catch on to that, I guess, but you know, I am investigating the use of a camera there, so we would know who it is. But so that's the update on that. We did put out, as usual, the MEDC announces their grant opportunities with very little lead time, but Zach and I did put that out to the downtown community, the Manton Main grant that was available. And we did get 2 applicants for that grant, and they will be moved forward to the state for their selection. And perhaps we could have, that's quite a generous grant if we do get it. At one time, I had 6 or 7 people that were very interested in applying. But when it came right down to it with the paperwork and the things that were required, and the deadline, the 2 were the only 2 that did come in. And for this past weekend, we had 38 ice sculptures and only 2 complaints so far about their sculpture. We had 45 scavenger hunt, looking for the bump jump sign. And we had the snow sculpture here, who honestly, that was a really big hit. If you went up there and looked at it, he did a great job, and he could do better if he had more snow. He could do better if he had more time. Of course, if we paid him more, he could do better too. But the snow sculpting was much better than I anticipated it to be. And this is just a great prelude to seeing what this event could be with more community involvement throughout the region. And all I did was go through the chamber, listed it in the chamber newsletter. I got Little Traverse Humane Society and Petoskey Pediatric Dental Clinic to come from the outside and have their sculptures in the park. I think when we get a person on board to, hit the streets, in a committee that is made of more than one person to solicit these, that we could turn the whole park into ice and snow and beauty very, very nicely. The sculptures are still standing, at least they were this morning. Although one of them, the one complaint was that one of them fell off their recycling bin. And I think we do need, if we're committed to this, we do need to somehow make some bins or some pedestals that we use every single year that we store someplace. We have good help from the city this year as far as collecting the snow for the snow sculptures. They brought it in from the outside, and that was very, very helpful. We did team up with the city as far as their winter carnival aspects, the bump jumping and the cardboard sled race. However, both of those events had to be canceled because of icy conditions. We gave them downtown dollars to hand out to the winners, and they're going to try to reschedule those events and still hand out those downtown dollars. So at least the goal was this year to keep it going, to not lose any traction necessarily, to make it a placemaking event. And I think it served that purpose, and I'm not feeling too badly about it at this point. Although my family was here, and debriefing with them was just like, I said, geez, guys, well, you could have had this, and you could have had this, and you could have had this. And I said, it's only me, if your family can be that tough, it's hard to, but they had a good time. They had a good time. So, let's see. Finally, I guess I want to tell you that I'm in final negotiations with a new employee for the marketing and events director. Maybe we'll have an announcement before the end of the week. Very, very, very hopeful about this person. Very pleased. Will be a great choice and moving forward. And I will be talking to the organization committee before we publicly announce it. But I'm a good time after this event is over, and a good time to start a new person to get ready for summer things and everything we have in store for the rest of the year. That was gruesome. I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I talked to a lot of people, interviewed a lot of people, threw away a lot of resumes and saved some just in case, but I think we got a good one. So So any questions?
No, thank you very much, Becky.
Okay,
Next thing on the agenda is reports by city staff.
Yeah, we hit the dining deck discussion, so I won't pick that up, but just to provide a quick overview on our two big projects, the Michigan Maple Block. This is something that 200-ish units of affordable / workforce housing. We kind of talked about what that looks like, the 80 to 120 AMI. This is a site that's had a few starts and stops, so I tend not to get overly excited until I see some dirt moving and some demo happening. But we're excited to work with this developer. They have the resources, they have the experience, they've done this before, so they're certainly not over their head. But it is a big project. Between this project, Michigan Maple Block, the lofts at Lumber Square, which we approved last night, the development and reimbursement agreement for that incentive. Between that project, we also approved last night the Oprah for 424 Emmett Street last night. So when you see those three projects, all that will be happening, knock on wood, this summer starting, that's exciting to think about what that would look like. And just looking at the Michigan Maple Block and that corridor, that is, the hope is that starts a transformation of that corridor, that kind of snowball, that domino effect will start where others will kind of come on board, and we can really recreate what that corridor could look like, which is pretty exciting to be a part of. Because it is a well-traveled corridor through there. We think it could be revitalized, and we're excited about what that looks like. I was also very pleased to be able to announce yesterday, the week's kind of flying by. Former Lieutenant Adrian Carr is our next public safety director. We had a pretty exhaustive search, but when we looked at what we had two very highly qualified internal candidates that we were very comfortable with. And ultimately we ended up choosing Adrian Carr to take on that responsibility, and we're excited about what that looks like going forward. Just the fact that we had two internals really speaks again volumes to former Director Breed and the culture that he created within the department to really promote both personal and professional opportunities for his department to really, from a succession plan standpoint, really have that opportunity to grow within. And so we're excited about what that looks like with Adrian at the helm, and I'm sure he will continue managing at a very high level. So we're excited about that as well. What else? I think that's probably it for some general comments for me. Any questions on the city side of things? I was going to mention something. Oh, yes, the corridor coming into downtown, the Mitchell Street, that project will be starting. Actually, we're going to start it over spring break while everybody's out of town. We're going to start the chainsaws up. So Ben, if you're in town, want to help,
I don't know. With a chainsaw.
we can give that to you. So that project will start. We'll kind of kick off while everybody's sitting on the beach, enjoying their spring break, and obviously that'll continue, and we'll get that buttoned up and prettied up in time for all of our visitors this summer. So we're excited about kicking that project off as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Chainsaw part or the part?
Yeah.
It's getting done. Years that we've been interested in that project. And I know there were a lot of hurdles and resources in the last 3 years did not help at all.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that. So that's great. With that, anything further from the board? Any miscellaneous comments? No. With that, I'd like to call tonight's meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for making it out thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Oh, yes.
Feel better.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else need it? I didn't get you a word.
But,
Would you like a Werther?
I'm good, thank you.
So the lesson I've learned over the years is that day close for the day